Now, in this domain, it's information security and risk management. They used to call it security practices or security management practices. And we're going to go over kind of what they call the soft skills: development of policies, development of a risk management program, development of standards, and we're going to get into what security governance actually means and how to do a structure with that. We'll talk about the type of training and the type of awareness that needs to be in place. So in this domain, it's more of what a lot of people call the soft skills, instead, because it's not overly technical. But this is where a lot of companies actually are moving into. A lot of companies have their head down in technology, and because of all the regulations, and now because security is a business issue, these things are much more important or get a lot more attention than they did in the past. So there's actually a gap in the industry of people who really know how to do these things compared to configuring a firewall or configuring a KDC or something like that. So this is important. You may think it's intuitive and you understand it, but when you actually have to put it into practice, a lot of people have a hard time because it's a new thing. Now, our mainframes, of course, got smaller, more efficient. They could do more different types of batch jobs. But at that time, it was really interesting because that was a glass house. We called it a glass house where the mainframe was. There's only a handful of guys who actually understood how the mainframe worked, interacted with it, and actually when anything went wrong, they didn't just do a configuration like we do today. They went into the code and modified it there. Now the mainframe, at that place, we all took our batch files to the mainframe for whatever job we had to have taken place. And then we figured out that a processing needed to come closer to the actual users. So we moved a lot of the processing power from the mainframes down to the user desktops. Now, why do you think information security is so important today compared to 5, 7, 10 years ago? Well, 7 to 10 years ago, we worked in this mainframe environment. Only a handful of people could interact with the system itself. So at that time, who knew what TCP/IP was? Who knew what the OSI model was? What an API was? At that time, the knowledge about technology was very small, so there wasn't as many people who could do damage. Now, as our culture has grown, we personally actually depend upon more technology than we realize. Healthcare, the energy that we use, and businesses can't run without technology. We actually take technology for granted. It's always there and it provides us a lot of functionality. Now, anything that you really depend upon is a weakness. And so that's where the attackers have come in. The hackers came in and they knew that that was a weakness. Now, in the beginning, hacking was just a lot of fun. There was just some teenage guys who had too much time in their hands, and it was very challenging to learn about the different protocols and to be able to carry out, bring down different websites or affect something. But now that's actually changed. Hacking has changed from some kids who are interested in it to a much more organized crime, and that's what we're going to get into: identity theft and the types of crimes that are taking place. But the reason that security is so important is because we're so dependent upon it. It protects our money, it protects our data, and as the technology came from the mainframe down to the employees' desktops, now they can interact with it, which means that they can make mistakes. So there's a lot of reasons that security is important. It's going to be around for a long time. And now it's not just general security information you need to know. People actually have to specialize, just like doctors have to specialize, maybe into web services, application security. So this is not going to go away. It's only going to increase because the complexity of our environment is going to increase. So if you look at our environments today, talk about complex. We have networks, we have routers, we have firewalls, but then we're growing outside these bounds. We have wireless, we have road warriors that have to communicate with the corporate environment and the assets. We're setting up things like web services, which allow different companies to use each other's services in open standards. We have cell phones that are basically computers. And the software itself is increasing in the complexity because we want more and more functionality. So our environment is going to only get more complex in the devices that we put on it and the software. Now, why does that have anything to do with security? Well, security and complexity do not get along. The more complex something is, the harder it is to secure it. Like in Windows 2000, there's 40 million lines of code, and that was Windows 2000. How do you secure that much code? So in our environments, not only do we have devices like routers and switches, we have software that works on them, we have operating systems, we have applications, we have users, and now we don't even have a closed environment. We're interacting with other companies, with the internet, with partners. So our environment is becoming much more porous, and the complexity of it is going to increase. And so if you're in security, you're always going to have a job.